Take a look at her body language in this clip. It's really cool, really funny stuff.
Okay, some of you have seen, there's those cool kids on the internet. They're doing the cool kid chatter. Some of them might be the coastal elites, making fun of how I talk. Not okay, says my governor. But let's be real. They're making fun of Michigan. They're thinking they're better than us.
This is such a cool way for a paid-off career politician to cynically appeal to people in a purple state. Just go up there and look like a fucking retard hunchback. My apologies for being ableist. And then say that if anyone makes fun of you, they're making fun of, like, the state. You know what I mean? Duh, I'm a Michigander, and if they make fun of me... I'm sorry, I'm being very ableist right now, but, like, what am I supposed to do with this? Her accent is fake. Her mannerisms are fake. Everything she's doing is fake. She's a corporate candidate with no real backing who did all of this, who put on this affect because she fucking hates Michigan. She hates American people. She hates people. It's like genuinely, do you have any idea how cynical they have to be in their back end, like, everyone's like smoking a cigar, their meetings, where they're like, we need you to appeal to Michiganders in order to win this Senate race. Can you sound like a fucking idiot? Can you make up this voice that no one has ever heard before, please?
And what they don't know is I am your voice. And their jokes and their criticism only makes me fight harder.
She's growing on me. She debated Abdul Al-Sayed last night, and I didn't watch it because I was too busy frantically driving home while flinging bed bugs from the infected Airbnb that I unknowingly stayed at out of the window. But I hear that Abdul cleaned house with her. Now, normally I would watch the entire thing, but we have a ton to go over, so instead I'm going to watch some notable clips, which thankfully encompass a significant portion of the entire thing, because I hear, again, he blew her the fuck out. We're also going to be watching it through a unique format over here. You Mish Voter, which is so this one's interesting for me. I thought that this person, You Mitch Voter, was a libcuck, like a blue MAGA libcuck, and I think that might have been an unfair, like an uncharitable interpretation of them. However, there seems to be some like underlying beating heart of sincerity, because this person fucking hates Haley Stevens. So rather than watching a regular clip farmer from the debate channel, we're watching a liberal go, holy shit, I would take Abdul Al-Sayed over the establishment pick. You know what I mean? That I feel like it's a more authentic way to engage with the content of the debate, to not just watch every like zing, but rather stuff notable in the mind of a person who is despite the liberalism, still disgusted by Haley Stevens. That to me, I think it's more notable. That was 100% true for the Wild, but then he was campaigning for Daria Lisa. You Mitch Voter was pro Daria Lisa? Okay, I didn't know that. That's funny. Well, either way, this is the format through which we're engaging with the clips of the debate. Oh, you're so right, though. We absolutely need to take a look at this, okay? The clip where Haley Stevens hears human rights and walks the fuck away.
That's awesome.
One, I did already vote, early voted. Somebody is going to win. I do not want Mike Rogers to win. And whoever it is, like I said, it's not an issue. It's not a candidate issue. It's a human rights issue.
Yeah, right.
Jai, what's your full name?
Jai, J-A-I.
Thank you. I know it's
Singletary, S-I-N-G.
All right now, guys.
See you.
Bye. See you tonight.
I'm 31.
She's so fucking
I
funny.
missed the top of this, but is it the neighborhood board?
Yeah, so I kind of answered, I put one hat on, Executive Director of Woodbridge Neighborhood Development.
Okay.
And my second hat, I've been living in the city of Detroit since 2019. I've been a resident of Michigan.
The activists shield her. Let's get the context for this, okay? Let's get the context. This has already turned out to be one of the most expensive Senate primaries ever. In fact, unless I'm mistaken, it's the most expensive Senate primary ever. Haley Stevens has burned all of her money on this primary to defeat Abdul Al-Sayed. The majority of the money that she has gotten is from AIPAC through differently named subsidiary PACs that they have created to avoid the stigma of being directly funded by AIPAC. AIPAC has spent a huge amount of money on her. She will have basically no money to fight against Rogers in the general, and she polls poorly against him, at least relative to Abdul al-Sayed. This means that AIPAC is... So let's think about this, okay? The main group of people backing Haley Stevens don't actually have any incentive for her to win over Rogers, because Rogers is also pro-AIPAC, meaning that if Haley Stevens wins over Abdul al-Sayed in the primary, there's no reason for AIPAC to continue funding her because they also back her opponent. This is entirely just to stop Abdul. For that reason, Abdul has to win 2 elections, whereas AIPAC has to only win 1. If Haley Stevens wins, AIPAC wins, because whether Haley Stevens or Rogers wins in the general, AIPAC wins. They're both AIPAC candidates. Thus, Abdul al-Sayed must win 2. I think this is the most important election of 2026, this primary between Haley Stevens and Abdul al-Sayed. The reason for that is because this is the final gasp, the final hurdle for AIPAC money. If those delusional freak fascist Zionists can't win here, then they're basically going to give up on the Democratic Party. They have spent so much money to get her to win over Abdul al-Sayed. They have blanketed the entire state in pro-Haley Stevens ads. They have been insanely disingenuous. They have been insanely racist. They have non-stop disingenuous, cynical attacks against Abdul al-Sayed. A lot of weird shit. There was a Haley Stevens event recently in which one of their big shields against Abdul al-Sayed, local black voters, said essentially like really racist shit about Abdul al-Sayed, really heinous racist shit, which Haley Stevens has not directly denounced, even though it was at her party event. There's so much shit happening, man. Basically, Haley Stevens represents the absolute worst of the Democratic Party, bar none. I think she might be the worst person alive. I'm not sure. I haven't done the math. Abdul al-Sayed isn't even a perfect candidate. I don't think he's a perfect candidate. I just think he's a really good candidate, and I think he's up against, he is up against the worst elements of the Democratic Party, elements so bad that she might as well be a Republican. There's basically no difference. She's literally primarily backed by people who are also backing the Republican in this race. Sure, just let me take a look at this. I haven't seen this clip.
I've been talking to a lot of Jewish voters here in Michigan who are big supporters of you. They say that if you do not make the primary, they would instead fundraise for Mike Rogers. You talk often about how important it is to beat Mike Rogers. What do you think of that?
Well, look, I'm also deeply proud to have a ton of support here in the city of Detroit, and frankly, even across the state of Michigan, as we well know. You know, I've been endorsed by the mayor of Grand Rapids, the mayor of Lansing, mayors across the Metro Detroit area, and I'm on the team. I'm on the Democratic team. I'm on the Beat Mike Rogers team. And so there is a very diverse coalition, an amazing coalition. I think we're all aware that this is a close race. And so I'll do my part to get out the vote and, you know, to work with folks. Either way this cuts, you know, I've been so energized and proud to be in this race. I always knew it was going to be a primary. That's why I put my hand up, you know, to engage in.
She answers like this no matter what she's asked a question on. Apparently the debate moderators and the debate that we're about to view really get her on this. Like, she does not answer questions directly.
In this process, and you know, we've had a lot of forums, a lot of debates. We have another debate tonight, and in 8 days, the polls are going to close. You know, we're going to know who our nominee is.
Care to reinforce your opinion AIPAC will abandon the Dems based on this election? Really curious, Heike. Because so AIPAC represents like Israel as a wedge, but capital broadly. And the Republican Party is able to more closely align with capital because Republican voters are all evil, every single one of them. A lot of Democrat voters are pretty okay. AIPAC supports Republicans primarily. They only support Democrats if it's to lock out progressives. If they're not even able to lock out, let's be real here. If AIPAC is not able to back local establishment Dem in winning a primary over a democratic socialist named Abdul al-Sayed, a Muslim in a purple state, then AIPAC has lost. They are now incapable of winning in the Democratic Party. AIPAC might be able to occasionally dump ungodly amounts of money to win over like unpopular or lesser known Democratic progressives in House seats, but this is a social democrat, not democratic socialist, as if there's a difference by the Bernie definition, you know. But this is like this is their line. If they can't do it here, it might just be a waste of money for them. Keep in mind, like, AIPAC might have an ungodly amount of money, but nobody likes to waste money, right? If AIPAC dumps tens of millions of dollars into helping Haley Stevens and then Haley Stevens loses, like, that is, from their perspective, wasted money. They don't like it, in the same way that donors in the Democratic Party don't like the fact that their money is currently being wasted by Ken Martin and that they're deeply in debt. So it might be the final nail for them. Yeah, it's the most money AIPAC has ever spent on a race in a huge margin, and it's a primary, not even the general. It's the last stand for them. I agree completely.
After all the ballots have been counted, and then it's off to the races. And, you know, unfortunately, Mike Rogers can't say the same. You know, he's been endorsed by Donald Trump. He is trailing in the polls. He's barely been campaigning. It's not even clear what he's campaigning on, or really, you know, why he's running for United States Senate, albeit to maybe go.
So fucking funny for her to say, considering the fact that she doesn't have a single policy position. Okay, let's get started with the debate, or at least the clips of the debate.
And travel a difference of 10 years difference in life expectancy. Instead of practicing clinically, I went into public health, rebuilt.
I'm sorry, this is the last thing. Did you see the story where the DNC borrowed $15 million against their own building as collateral? Yeah, they effectively mortgaged their headquarters. That's how broke the Democratic Party is nationally. Ken Martin has done such a bad job of appealing to donors that they had to fucking essentially mortgage their headquarters. It is dire in the National Democratic Party. Really, really dire. Why? Because nobody wants to donate. Why does nobody want to donate? Because nobody thinks the National Democratic Party can win an election. Hideously incompetent. Ken Martin has to go. Like yesterday, Ken Martin has to go. The lessons, though? Oh, I know. The lessons. Yeah, I know. Keep in mind, there are Democratic candidates who have gotten lots and lots of money, like Abdul El-Sayed. But there's a difference between donating to a candidate and donating to a party. And the party right now is in bad shape because nobody, not even donors, not even like centrist donors, have faith that the Democratic Party is able to use that money effectively.
Detroit's health department led Wayne County's Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services. We did things like put glasses on kids, took on corporate polluters, made sure that our kids weren't breathing the worst coming out of smokestacks, and eliminated medical debt. But I'm running because it just shouldn't be this hard. I've been down to 110 different cities, 475 public events. I could go to a living room in Lansing. I could be in a church in Detroit. No matter where I go, people tell me I need to be able to afford my groceries. I need to be able to afford my gas. I need to be able to see a doctor when I get sick. My friend is going to frame this race about me and her. It's not about that. It's about you. It's about what you deserve. It's about you deserving a politics that's not bought off by the same corporations picking your pocket at every single turn. I'm looking forward to the conversation about how we get money out of politics, put money in your pocket, and pass Medicare for all.
Good opener. Again, we're watching these clips. We simply don't have time to watch the whole thing, but there are a lot of clips.
Tonight, as we know, the stakes of this race couldn't be higher. Costs
from her opening statement
continue to go up. Our health care, voting rights, civil rights, it's all on the line, in addition to Social Security and Medicare. And if Mike Rogers wins this race, all goes by the wayside. Look, Michigan deserves a senator who can win and who can deliver. I'm the only one on this stage who
electability arguments, even though she polls beneath Abdul El-Sayed against Rogers.
Has flipped a Republican seat, and I was named Michigan's most effective Democratic lawmaker in Congress because my only
she's not, even by liberal standards, even like by her own metrics, she has been a bad congressperson. She has always been like a slop nothing candidate with no policy positions backed by AIPAC. She's always been like this. She's one of their chosen vessels.
Focus is you. Abdul is running for celebrity. Republicans are propping up his campaign. And Mike Rogers just the other day said in a secret phone call that
what has she done in her career before this? Nothing. She's a career politician. She's always been like this. She's always just been an empty puppet for capital. It's rare to find people like her in the Democratic Party. People like her are a dime a dozen in the Republican Party. People who believe literally nothing and will just take money. That's it. But in the Democratic Party, they're actually relatively uncommon. They're more common in states like California and New York, where you're very close to the money. But in a state like Michigan, I think the average Democrat, even like national Democrats, people in Congress, are generally motivated by at least some internal belief. That's the reason why AIPAC is dumping so much into her, because they know that she is it represents nothing, just a skin suit, you know?
Makes it easier for him to win, that he's the one he wants to run against. Look, this isn't about the DC or New York influencer crowd. This is about putting Michigan first, and I've got the receipts to do that, which is why Governor Whitmer and so many others are joining my campaign to win in November.
I didn't even get a chance to talk about this because I was on vacation, but yes, Gretchen Whitmer, in a pathetic and suicidal effort to prop up Haley Stevens' campaign, endorsed her. Incredibly inappropriate, in my opinion, for a governor to endorse in a heated primary like this, especially considering the fact that Whitmer is now unpopular. Remember, Whitmer has done a bunch of unpopular shit lately, from admitting on a hot mic that the best way to get data centers through is just force it through, don't ask permission. She's been cooperating with the Trump administration, hid her face behind that binder while a photo was taken at the Oval Office. Where's that clip of Whitmer? Hold on. Whitmer, hot mic, data center. One of the most egregious... Look at this. Yeah, here we go. While talking to Oracle CEO Clay Magouyrk, or whatever the fuck his name is pronounced, she says at a data center groundbreaking, "We're used to people saying no and doing it anyway." There we go. So that's this is the kind of stuff that she's been plagued with over the past couple of years. Truly empty, doesn't believe in anything, and so she's been pitched in to support Haley Stevens as well.
Money from the corporations who are jacking up your prices in the first place. When you're bought off by DTE and Blue Cross and Big Pharma and Big Tech and AIPAC, don't be surprised that there's a pro quo that comes with that quid. That money doesn't just fall off trees. $60 million from outside organizations in this race didn't just come from nowhere. It's because those exact same organizations expect something on the other side, and that's that they get to expect to own your next U.S. senator. So it starts with being able to say, I'm the only candidate in this race who doesn't take any money from corporations. Never have, never will. And then from there, I actually can stand up to them. I can do things like enforce our antitrust policies that haven't been enforced. I can do things like tax billionaires their wealth so we can take that money and invest it in you and your kids, in your schools. I can do things like make sure that rather than sending your money somewhere else to drop bombs on other people and their kids, we can keep that money here at home. And just in case you don't believe me, just think about this. Just last week, our friend here voted to send $3.3 billion of your tax dollars to a foreign government. That is the pro quo that comes with the quid of $30 million spent by AIPAC. So it really...
I really like that. While talking about the most bought person in Congress, that's the pro quo that comes with the quid. I like that a lot. I think that's quite nice.
Yeah, some of that was about your record in Washington. I want you to be able to address that, but also tell us what you would do to keep the cost of living down.
Yeah, our affordability crisis is choking us out here in Michigan. You know, everywhere I go, if it's at the fish fry in downtown Detroit, or the working single mom who just the other day told me her healthcare costs continue to go up, that the grocery bill is only getting harder. We don't need lip service. We need action. And Abdul's going to talk about where employees from certain corporations are spending their money, but let me tell you about
employees from certain corporations.
About what I am doing, because DTE and our utility companies are selling out their ratepayers, and I'm giving them an option. I'm saying DTE, either stop raising rates or lose your federal funds and cut executive pay. Look, we need proven fighters in these positions, and that is what I have done time and time again. I've got the receipts to show it, and this is also why Governor Whitmer and A.G. Nessel, you know, two proven fighters who want to see results.
It's every single response from her is, we're proven, we have the receipts, we can get her done. What done? We don't know. No policy. It's like this for the entire debate. Every time she talks, everything that she says. For context, DTE sucks and is universally hated. Didn't she get a lot of flack after this for her answer here? Hold on one second. This is the only clip that I've seen prior to the stream relating to the debate. This took place after the debate. Hold on. It's really, really good. Like, she really melts down here.
Congresswoman, you said today you didn't take money from utilities, but you got checks from consumers and DTE a month before you entered the Senate race.
Yeah, he asked me. He asked specifically about the Senate race.
It
And
was
look,
transferred to your Senate committee, I believe.
yeah. He just asked about my current campaign. Yeah, Sam, did you have something?
Will you take donations from consumers in DTE if you
Look, I'm
win
gonna.
place in the Senate?
Look, I'm running to beat Mike Rogers, you know, and you heard tonight my opponent, you know, make all these wild accusations.
It's also, I want you to pay attention to this language, because over the past decade, the deference to electability has completely consumed politics itself within the Democratic Party. It makes absolutely no sense to admit that you are running to beat a candidate. Okay, beat them and do what? What does it mean if you beat them? You have to beat them to do something. Right now, you're in the primary against Abdul Al-Sayed. So your only argument is that you would beat Mike Rogers? Abdul Al-Sayed outpolls you against Mike Rogers. The non-stop deference to electability politics is like an acknowledgement that you represent nothing. And we saw this back in 2020 as well, to a large extent. The biggest argument in favor of Biden was that he was the electability candidate. He was the candidate who would win against Trump. But in exchange, we got a candidate with bad policy, except for on union workers' rights stuff. And as a consequence of that, we ended up losing dramatically in 2024. It makes no sense to admit you're running for politics just to win. Isn't when you say you're running to beat a candidate, isn't that the same as you're running to win? What does that say about the democracy that you're in? You're running to win? Okay, imagine that. Imagine like running in a school election, like for class president, and your pitch is you're running to win. Who would vote for you? It doesn't even make any sense. What do you mean? Definitionally, you run to win. That's part of running. Nobody runs to lose. Of course you're running to win. What does that mean? Are you just like a narcissist? What are you talking about?
Talking about how employee monies that come from corporations are the root of the problem, except I'm leading the charge to take on DTE right now. I am leading the charge to say that you are screwing over your ratepayers, and I am going to strip your federal funds and force you to cut executive pay. I think that is damn good for the people of Michigan and what they need right now.
But will you
Thank
take
you.
money
Thank you.
from them?
Thank you.
You're not answering.
Yeah. Look, I'm trying to get to the United States Senate.
Look at this. Every time.
Like, you can keep pushing me.
You can keep pushing me.
I have no idea, you know, if we're going to be able to do these major reforms, but
Jesus Christ, look at this.
They need right now.
But will you
Thank you.
take money
Thank you.
from them?
Thank you.
You're not answering.
Yeah. Look, I'm trying to get to the United States Senate. Like, you can keep pushing me. I have no idea, you know, if we're going to be able to do these major reforms, but
Total acknowledgement that none of these reforms are the purpose of her running. They're just something she says to deflect off the DTE accusations. Like, she's not even good at this, man. I'm sorry. She's just so fucking unlikable.
Have endorsed me in this race because Michigan, it needs a workhorse in the United States Senate. Sleeves rolled up, ready to tackle our problems on day one.
15.
And I'm not just stopping there. Let's lower the cost of groceries with my bill. No tariffs on groceries.
Jesus Christ. Mom Donnie slop. Like how Hillary Clinton started to try to talk like Bernie when she realized his policies were way more popular than hers in 2016.
And from DTE consumers.
No, but let me say this, Roop. I have been transparent. I have been transparent throughout this campaign. And let me just say this, that the only thing that
establishment seems to be going with the "we get stuff done" rhetoric when they've done nothing for 30 years. It's rhetoric that is meant to appeal largely to 70-year-olds who remember the Clintons. That's it. Like, these people are running. It's an endless 1992 election or 1996. It's meant to appeal to people who have a vague memory of the Democratic Party doing something and having some kind of legitimate political authority. Not to say I like the Clintons. I hate them. Also, he's a pedophile. But like, what is this? No tariffs on groceries? Are you implying you're okay with the rest of the illegal tariffs that Trump pushed through? You know, the insane, unprecedented, unconstitutional tariffs that he levied without Congress. Are you implying you're okay with the rest of them? Your only problem is tariffs on groceries? The rest of them you're fine with?
What motivates my work is the people of Michigan, the people who I hear from. You know, my opponent is on these big podcasts. You know, he's running a podcast himself. These folks are making fun of the way I sound, but yet I sound
Just a great communicator here.
like the people who need help, who are talking to me about what they need
Congresswoman,
done.
that was a
Dog, she fucking hates you guys. She hates Michiganders so fucking much. I sound like the people. Like, again, this is all fake. Her accent's fake. It's fake. It's somewhere in some APAC consultancy meeting, she was told to sound like an idiot because she needs idiots voting for her. It's completely 100% fake. It's so fucking funny for her to be like, oh, the reason I sound like this is because this is what you sound like, Michigan. I've heard Michiganders, okay? They just sound Canadian. They don't sound like fucking Bobby Hill.
follow-up to ask the direct question whether you're taking money from utilities or
And I
not.
said no.
The answer is no. Thank you. Dr. El-Sayed, I'm asking you the same question. Any money from anyone that we don't know about?
No and never, but then $40,000 in direct receipts to her campaign from DTE's corporate PAC. And then there's, I don't know, Center for Democratic Priorities, which released its funders, but then they're behind these shell organizations, these 501c4s. So I'd really like to revisit that question because I don't know how to explain $40,000 directly to her campaign from DTE. I'm the only candidate in this race who's never touched a dime of corporate PAC money.
I do want to ask both of you about your campaigns respectively when it comes to certain questions that people have. Congresswoman, we'll begin with you, and we'll dive right into that right now.
Oh, man.
The question route, because this moment in this country and here in Michigan, people have every right to be frustrated about our campaign finance system. My opponent.
His phrasing was a little off. He could have been sharper. I think it's genuinely difficult to reckon with a candidate like Stevens because of how openly, transparently, shamelessly evil she is. Like, she very transparently believes in nothing and is the most bought person in Congress. AIPAC has never dumped this much money on anything. It's really, really obvious. So for her, I mean, just watch the clip. Watch the clip. Just watch this clip.
Here on this stage, Abdul, he's got a super PAC that his father-in-law funds that has millions of dollars going into it. And look, in terms of foreign policy, you know, Abdul and I do differ. I believe in a two-state solution. He has attacked me by name for purporting that the people of Palestine and the people of Israel deserve to live side by side peacefully. The goal is always long-term peace. And also, the Prime Minister of Israel has attacked me by name. They both represent the extremes. Look, Michigan.
Netanyahu has effectively endorsed her, hasn't he? Am I misremembering this? Netanyahu, Haley Stevens. Oh, is that not true? Was that fake? I thought that I thought he praised her. Not like an official endorsement, but a praise? No, it's not true. Okay. It seems like that was fake. All right, good to know.
Want peace. They deserve to see peace.
It makes sense. Netanyahu wants Stevens to win, or wants Rogers to win. It doesn't matter from his perspective, but probably understands that any kind of publicly supportive statement of Stevens would be used against her in her run.
And that is where I have always cast my vote, and that is the work that I want to do for Michigan and the U.S. Senate.
Specifically about AIPAC money, more than $46 million has been spent on AIPAC spending to back your campaign. A lot of people wonder if that...
Huge, by the way, I cannot overstate how much I appreciate this guy calling it AIPAC funding. Remember, AIPAC isn't directly funding her, they're using subsidiary PACs. What are they called, like Workers for Democracy PAC or whatever? AIPAC created differently named PACs so that technically it's not AIPAC funding her, it's AIPAC funding these other PACs that fund her. So I appreciate him cutting through the bullshit. It's still AIPAC funding.
Is something where you're going to do their bidding when should you win this seat. Is that something people should be concerned about? And if not, why not?
Absolutely not, Roop. Look, I have been very clear, consistent, and transparent, and I have continued to be. I want to see long-term peace. I want to see a two-state solution. I am deeply proud to represent one of the largest Jewish populations in a congressional district in the country. This is a community that I have grieved alongside, that I've mourned alongside, and have fought to bring the hostages home. And I'm still working to get us to long-term peace.
But no concern about the $46 million plus spent.
I like her response to like, hey, are you an AIPAC candidate? Is no, of course I'm not an AIPAC candidate. However, I'm deeply, 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 deeply sympathetic to the concerns of Israel. I'd say it's like my #1 concern, really.
on the behalf of AIPAC that should worry people about perhaps you doing their bidding should you win the seat?
Well, I don't think there's much difference between super PACs going in for Abdul or super PACs going in for me. We have a problem with campaign finance reform in this country. I have an A grading from End Citizens United. I have been endorsed by Defend the Vote. I have voted consistently, and I'm going to stop Mike Rogers from getting anywhere close to the United States Senate, which is why he...
You know, it'd be a really good question. Do you have any criticism for Mike Rogers' positions and statements on Israel? That'd be a really good one.
Doesn't want to run against me, and which is why somebody like Governor Whitmer is supporting me in this race.
Congresswoman Stevens, weight that we all feel in this community, which is about the Israel-Palestine issue. It obviously has colored this election greatly. It colors the Democratic Party. How do you see yourself moving forward, should you become a senator here, handling the situation with Iran, Israel, and Hamas?
So I just want to say the difference between us is $46 million of AIPAC spending. They've set a record in this race to help elect my opponent because they know that she'll be a reliable vote, just like she...
As Abdul has said, if you need a $50 million crutch to win in a primary, you are not the right candidate for the general. What a fucking insane thing to... Like, is this not an acknowledgement of weakness? If outside corporate, like, special interest money has to prop you up this much, only for you to still be behind him in the polling, you're clearly not the electability candidate. The electability arguments are obviously completely insincere, but even if they were sincere, they would still represent, like, an abandonment of democratic principles. You shouldn't elect candidates just because they can get elected. That makes no sense.
Took last week to send your tax dollars to a foreign government that is aiding, arming, and abetting the very people who want to foreclose on the possibility of Palestinian self-determination. Look, at the end of the day, my job is to take care of you here. I want to be your U.S. Senator. I want your tax dollars spent in Michigan to provide schools in Michigan, to build healthcare in Michigan, to build roads in Michigan. And I think that money sent over there to kill kids and women.
There's a real chance she loses if she becomes the nominee. Oh, of course. I don't think she's going to win against Mike Rogers. She has no backing from the people of Michigan. She has no independent campaign contribution. She has no ground game. She has no canvassing. Like, all of the support she's getting are from PACs that also support Rogers. Why would they continue? There's no reason for her to win after this. Her job is to make sure Abdul doesn't defeat Rogers.
Is the worst use of our tax dollars, and yet that's exactly what $46 million in spending will buy you. And I believe deeply that we have a responsibility to make sure that we don't make other people's problems worse. So
she's an intentional spoiler. No, that's not a spoiler. She's just trying to beat Abdul. She's an anti-Abdul candidate. Hey, yo!
I believe in equal rights to peace, dignity, and self-determination for Palestinians and Jewish Israelis alike. I believe that we should not be fighting stupid wars that AIPAC wants us to fight in the first place. And I believe we have a responsibility to keep our money here, to invest here. That really is the difference. We're being outspent in this race 12-1. Chances are you're going to see an ad, probably 2 of them, on behalf of AIPAC for my opponent in the next commercial break. That's what that buys you, lying about a record around.
What a good line. What a good line. Yeah, anyone watching this live on TV is probably going to get peppered with an AIPAC bot Haley Stevens ad during the commercial break. So to remind them that this is actually a sign against her, really, really smart.
President Obama's endorsement or lying about me and my character. But that's exactly what happens when you stand up and say, maybe Palestinians should have rights too, and maybe we should have rights to our tax dollars here at home.
Dr. El-Sayed, I'm going to give Congresswoman...
Banger argument. Hold on, I hear this is a banger clip. Pre-debate clip. This is a pre-debate clip.
Hiding anything from voters. I'm not breaking FEC laws. By any stretch of the means. In fact, I'm compliant with the FEC laws. And
I'm not breaking any FEC laws, and in fact, compliant with them T-shirt is raising a lot of questions answered by the T-shirt.
What's gone on here. So maybe that's something on the...
Just trying to see whether you're
and also, Chad, you know that individual
I don't know why the video's like this. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No. You're asking me, why would you ask me that question, first of all?
Well, I'm asking because they're your opponents are going to, hanging it as one of their big issues they're going to try to use against you here in the next 3 months.
In paid communications or just when they're out there talking?
Yeah, both, yeah.
And why do you think they're doing that?
Trying to tap into some anti-Israel sentiments in the Democratic...
Do you think it's foreign policy? Yeah, look, I think we should talk about foreign policy.
Jesus. Oh yeah, the Haley Stevens FEC compliance post. I saw this polling come out earlier today. Is this a credible polling? No, actually, we might as well address this one now. This polling came out today, and it's very, very funny. For one, this pollster, Glenn Gariff, has endorsed Haley Stevens. I want you to consider how odd it is for a pollster, a person whose job it is to provide impartial readings of voter intent, to endorse a candidate. For two, it's phone bank only. Via phone banking only, i.e. only 65-plus-year-olds are actually answering these phones. These are results they got. They might have also just lied. This is a completely untrustworthy pollster. It was also a business group that commissioned it. Yeah, no, these people should all be in jail. Absolutely ridiculous, yeah. Here's a poll that AIPAC couldn't buy. Fox 2 polling on who won the Democratic debate after Stevens and Abdul Al-Sayed got off the stage. Oops! No way for AIPAC to fund that one. I think there's a very real possibility, though it's difficult to know because there's so much like fog, there's so much like misinformation out there. I think there's a very real possibility that Abdul Al-Sayed fucking blows her out in the primary, like annihilates her. If this happens, it's the best possible case scenario for the future of American democracy and the Democratic Party. Abdul Al-Sayed is fighting a holy war right now against the forces of evil, of the Republican Party, of anti-democracy, of capital on the Democratic Party. It is genuinely impossible to overstate how important this primary is. AIPAC would be dead. No, they would continue to fund the Republican Party, but they might well be dead within the Democratic Party.
Transparent, and that is why I have released my full tax returns, and Abdul still hasn't. We need to ask him, what's he hiding? What are the Republicans going to uncover in the general election?
Oh, the tax returns that she's referring to, apparently Abdul's wife owns real estate in Dubai or something like that, which is really, really funny.
That they will use against him. I am the only non-millionaire in this race. I have been recognized as an effective Democratic lawmaker who, yes, governs in a clear, consistent way on complex challenges. I am beholden to the people of Michigan, the people who I hear from when I am in the grocery store line, people who've broken down in tears, asking me how we can address this affordability crisis. And that is what I am doing. That is what I will do on day one. And I have the receipts to prove it.
Is she really pretending it's suspicious that a doctor's well off? Yeah. The money that Abdul Al-Sayed makes seems to largely be because he's a successful doctor. It's not relevant. I gotta say, listen, I am so unconcerned with these like arguments of personal wealth. I literally don't care. I don't care who's a millionaire. I don't care who's a billionaire. I have supported very, very wealthy people running for office. I've supported Pritzker. I've supported Tom Steyer. The idea that like individual wealth is the relevant characteristic, this is a distraction. I remember them making a big fuss over Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders had a home in Vermont, and then he got a home in DC, and then he like inherited a family home, and everyone was like, he owns 3 homes. Dog, he's a socialist, and he was running against people who are fucking kids on Epstein's Island. I'm not like this is a distraction. I will never ever hear these arguments seriously. This like inane deference to, well, I can't challenge you on your positions or the ethics of your beliefs, so I'm going to act as though you're committing some kind of like moral crime by being well off. I don't care. I don't care.
Across the country. Just earlier this week, we heard that there was some kind of a Zoom call in which you had referenced an opponent as ogre on a pike, and so many people took offense to that, and it really pointed
in reference to Fetterman, which is true.
To the bigger question about the tone and tenor that you've been accused of having in this campaign. Do you regret any of the comments that you've made? And do you think that this race could take a more productive and a more substantive tone if we kept those personal slams out?
Look, I took to Twitter last week and said that the tone in which people talk about my opponent is unkind. And I asked anybody who supported me to not talk about her that way. In fact, when she got booed on the stage at the Michigan Democratic Party convention, I called her personally and said that that was unkind. My supporters had nothing to do with it, but I don't think that that's the way we want to do politics. I was referring to a guy named John Fetterman, who's a senator from Pennsylvania, who has has done terrible things, got elected on a set of values, and is now completely throwing those values in the mud. And I do think it's important for any senator in Michigan to have a relationship with folks who are in the U.S. Senate. And if those folks are not actually acting in accordance with what they got elected on, I think it's important for all of us to have an honest opinion about what we're going to do to make sure that our Senate looks like the people it represents. But when we talk about unkindness, I also just want to speak to the fact that on behalf of my opponent, UDP, another name for AIPAC, has been running attack ad after attack ad after attack ad on my character. I'm the father of 2 daughters. I'm raising them to be stronger than any man.
One of the big and really cynical attacks against him is the narrative that Abdul Al-Sayed is sexist because he's been up against Haley Stevens and also McMorrow, both of whom are women. Has he said anything sexist? No. Has he done anything sexist? No. It's a reheating of the Bernie bro rhetoric where Bernie Sanders got criticized for being misogynistic, even though he never did or said anything even remotely misogynistic, and has been a stalwart advocate for women's rights for longer than basically anyone here has been alive. But because a lot of his supporters were men, I mean, half of the world's population is men, you know, gonna happen eventually. Can't really win an election just with women's support. You know, you can create this narrative. As always, a cynical deference to IDPOL. Yes, it's also racist, for sure, 100%.
My wife is a doctor. My mother was the first tenured professor of engineering at her university. I was raised by strong women. To say that somehow, because I wrote an op-ed 15 years ago about First Lady Michelle Obama, or I ran against Governor Whitmer, that somehow I'm disrespecting anybody is just inconsistent with the truth. So I really think it's important for my opponent to speak to why she thinks it's okay to spend $10 million of AIPAC money coming after my character. I'd love to understand that, because I went on Twitter and I said that those comments are unkind. I'd like to see the same thing.
Congresswoman, we're going to get to some questions.
There is a cinnamon heart in my coffee. Thank you, love. The fake Abdul campaign email sent out by the Stevens campaign. Yeah, this is just a straight up violation of campaign law, isn't it? After Abdul Al-Sayed told his supporters to not be mean to the disgusting, wretched, fucking skin suit known as Haley Stevens, the Stevens campaign sent out a fake Abdul email saying Mike Rogers endorsed Abdul Al-Sayed. Like, the Haley Stevens campaign put out an email with the Abdul for U.S. Senate logo at the top. Endorsement alert, Mike Rogers endorses Abdul Al-Sayed in Democratic U.S. Senate primary. Of course, they didn't do that, but this is just straight up creating fake propaganda for the other side. This is against the law. This is just a crime. Not that it matters. You can break any law you want if you're a Zionist.
That the ads that you see on television, whether you paid for them or whether someone else paid for them, do you think they're doing an injustice to voters by just filling the room with vitriol and hate and not getting to the issues?
Well, look, there was something else that was revealed in the phone call that Abdul was mentioning, which is that he said that he's not going to be able to get much done, that he's not focused on policy for the first 2 years that he is in the United States Senate, that he's going to be focused on national politics. Again, Michigan needs a workhorse, and I am offering these ideas on day one.
Congressman, respectfully,
yes.
I do want to answer the question.
But
it's about
it is
civility.
important to be transparent about what is being said here. And look, Abdul's a great guy. He's a great father. You know, only he can account for saying that, you know, Whitmer's bought and paid for, or that, you know, no one cares about Debbie Stabenow, or that Mallory McMorrow isn't smart enough. You know, that is certainly on him to respond to, which we certainly just did hear from him on that.
Can I
Dr. Al-Sayed, you have a quick minute here.
Look, I told you at the outset that my opponent was going to make this race about me and her. But this is about you. This is about whether or not you deserve a politics of the people, by the people, and for the people.
He's very good. We really lucked out with him. We really lucked out with him. By the way, it's worth noting that AIPAC, and by extension the Rogers campaign, is really panicking right now because Rogers will not beat Abdul Al-Sayed in the general. It's kind of like what we're seeing in Maine, where the Collins campaign is freaking the fuck out over Troy Jackson, because the Collins campaign would have beaten Mills and might have beaten Plattner, because Plattner was very personally attackable. But Troy Jackson represents the best of both worlds. Ironclad personal politics and very good politics. Or sorry, very good like general policy. Collins doesn't have a chance against him, in my opinion.
Or of the corporations by the billionaires and for the special interests. In an effort to talk about civility, I just took another attack. And I just want you to ask yourself, what is it that you deserve from your politics now? Do you deserve a politician more focused on their opponent because they want to be in a seat? Or do you deserve a politics where we're all asking, how do we actually serve you best? Because that's what I'm focused on.
What are the chances she tries to pull a Bloomberg and run independent? It can't happen here. I don't know whether or not Michigan law forbids it with the sore losers rule, but she doesn't have any independent backing. Cuomo had near universal name recognition in New York City, which allowed him to mount an effective independent campaign after losing the Democratic primary. Stevens doesn't. Stevens is a House member. Only a small portion of Michiganders even elected her when she was in the House. And what's more, she's not very personally popular. Cuomo, for better or for worse, was very, very, very well known. It's not going to fly this time.
Focused on here in this debate and been focused on for this entire 15-month campaign that we've been running on.
No, that's true, Masaigo. For the most part, national Democrats aren't touching this race with a hot iron or with a 10-foot pole. And the reason for that being, if you have people like Jeffries or Schumer endorse Stevens and then Stevens loses, it's another blow against them. It's the same reason why Schumer and Jeffries did not explicitly endorse Cuomo, even though we know they wish that Cuomo had won. They know their time is over. They know that Abdul al-Sayed and by extension the good working people of this country are fed up with them. They know it's fucking over. They're just clinging on to whatever they can while they can.
Consistently ranks among one of the worst for power reliability and rate affordability. As hotter summers and severe storms strain our infrastructure, what federal policies or grid investment standards will you champion to ensure Michigan residents get reliable, affordable power?
We'll begin with Congresswoman Haley Stevens for an answer on that.
Yeah, well, and Hannah, thank you so much for asking such an important and palpable question to so many Michiganders. It has been deeply frustrating to see Donald Trump get rid of the clean energy tax credit. It has been deeply frustrating to see our utility bills go up and up and up. These companies do not care about the ratepayers, and they are selling us out.
She's taking money from these companies.
Not offering lip service to this issue. I'm offering a solution, which is to say to these companies, either lower the rates or lose your federal funds. Look, I voted for the infrastructure bill. I secured...
Remember, this is the question that she was asked after the debate, and this is the subject in response to which she said, look, who knows if we're even going to be able to get this done. This is a fake policy she has. She's lying here. It's a deflection that she's offering now, knowing that it can't actually happen, in an effort to deflect from the fact that she is an ally to these power companies. It's exactly the same as how... Remember when we were looking at the current candidate, Adam Smith, the current House member from Washington 9, where he was like pro-abolishing ICE until there was actually a chance of it happening, and now he's like, whoa, wait, hold on. By abolishing ICE, I didn't mean abolishing ICE. And then he created a new definition of abolishing ICE. Candidates like this will only support good policies until it becomes possible to affect them, at which point they'll back away from them.
Funds for us back here in Michigan. I want to do more of that, passing the largest climate bill in the history of this country. Donald Trump's trying to erase it. We need a science-forward agenda, delivering for us, meeting the moment for who our families are, what our children deserve, and that's why I'm running for United States Senate.
Hannah, we have...
God, I hate her. I hope she loses. I need her to lose.
Speak directly to what's happening right now. You've got...
Also, DSA endorsed Francesca Hong is poised to win the primary in Wisconsin. Yes, we might actually get our very first DSA governor.
DTE, which is the biggest spender in our entire politics, they spend on 93% of the entire elected state legislature, as well as most of our congresspeople, including my colleague here. And that allows them to get away with things like building one of the largest hyperscale data centers in our state in ex parte approval. Now, that's fancy terms for saying approval without actually going through the normal process. And this is going to increase the load on our grid by more than twice. Now, we just lost our power for 5 days in a row because of a mid-level storm.
Damn, didn't know that.
We need to do a lot better. To me, it's about transparency in policymaking. People should not be able to take that money and then turn the other cheek and then allow for these approval processes that aren't approval processes at all. I still have yet to see a plan from DTE about how...
Haley also opposed the Green New Deal. Dog, Haley is pro-genocide. She would kill you if she could. If she was told by AIPAC that in order to receive their support, she needed to find you and kill you and your family in your house, she would do it. You have no fucking idea how evil these people are.
They're going to improve our reliability while doubling, more so, the amount of electricity they're expected to provide for a data center that nobody asked for. I put out a terms of engagement because these data centers, that was one of 15 that proposed last year alone. We need to be serious about the incoming threat that's going to make all of this so much worse.
Thank you both. In this particular race. But when you go to a rally, and we've covered so many of them are from that organization. Who are you when it comes to your political stripes? Many people call you progressive. Some have accused you of being a socialist. Not that that's a bad word, but people have
you seen people criticizing Ossoff for not supporting the Green New Deal and other progressive policies in 2020? Look, I'm not a huge Ossoff head, but it is worth remembering the state Ossoff was running in. He was the first Democrat to win a national election there in what, decades? I do think there's a major difference here, and there's also a difference between politics then and now. But yeah, I'm not a huge Ossoff head, for sure. But also, it's worth remembering that Ossoff is like literally 50 orders of magnitude less evil than Haley Stevens. Like, Ossoff is not really a progressive. Haley Stevens is a fucking demon.
That about you. Where do you stand on your politics? How would you describe your politics?
Roop, I'm a doctor and a scientist. I want policy endorsement.
Well, that was quite a cutoff there.
Rebuilding a health department in the city of Detroit, leading Wayne County's Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services. We had to go in there and work with a diverse community to be asking what are the challenges we face and how do we actually solve them? We were able to identify the fact that our county ranked number 8 for medical debt nationwide, and we could.
I know y'all have a past, but Mike from PA raised $50,000 for Hong on a stream with her. Pretty based. I've congratulated Destiny when he's raised canvassing funds for Democratic candidates over Republicans. I just don't base my politics out of personal spite all that much. Like, Mike from PA is a goofball. That's putting it very, very lightly. But the country's dying right now. It's being raped to death by the worst people alive. A unified effort to push back against that, even, it is always going to require like a motley crew. I don't care. Liberals, obnoxious fake socialist tankies, whatever. Listen, the DSA has to win here for the future of America and for the future of the Democratic Party. I don't really think there's any breaking out of the party duopoly in America right now today in like America's current system. I don't really think independents can make that much of a sway. Even when independents won, they basically have to caucus with one of the two major parties. But like, goddamn, dude, people like Haley Stevens really do represent the fucking death of this party. Not even because of their policies, but because of how openly contemptuous they are of the democratic process overall. At least like Republicans, as anti-democratic as they are, create and then respond to voter demand. Haley Stevens just try to gaslight you into like she's not even good at it. I need people to keep believing in democracy. The DSA must win.
Eliminate that for a penny on the dollar. So we set aside $7 million to erase up to $700 million in medical debt. When kids couldn't get glasses, 30% of them would get tested positive for needing glasses and wouldn't get a pair. We put optometrists on vans outside of schools so that as soon as a kid got a positive test, they go out, get a full optometric exam, and get a pair of glasses delivered within 2 weeks of a vision test. Now, working with a diverse community of people, you come to realize that not every solution fits the same way. You've got to be thinking about a solution in the right way. When it comes to the question of socialism, I'm not a socialist. I'm just a capitalist who understands how capitalism works. The biggest threat to capitalism was never the idea of government regulation. It was always monopoly. I want you to think about the stuff that you have to buy, whether it's your groceries and the number of stores you can go to.
Cringe, but okay. Keep in mind that like every single person running is a capitalist. Even candidates like Daria Lisa still have to effect their reforms in the context of capitalism. Like it's not. I don't have a problem with this. Like it's you could be the biggest socialist in the world. I could run, and it's not like my policy would be like day one abolish capitalism. It can't even be done. We have to crash. We have to hit the cliff. We have to go over the waterfall first.
Or it's buying a flight to see your grandmother, or it's...
But in policy, the world makes all of us liberals. There are people who have tried to beat that, and at the end they've lost. Lenin was not a liberal, and where is Russia today? The world makes liberals of all of us. Our goal is to prepare for a world in which that is no longer the case. And also to hope that the thing after liberalism isn't, fascism.
Picking a phone or a phone provider. You have like 2 or 3 options. And that shouldn't be legal, but that's the way our economy works right now. So I think government ought to be there to regulate on monopolies and oligopolies so that everybody can actually participate in an economy without having to be forced to pay more or get paid less for the work they do. understand that a pathway forward to bring back the manufacturing that we lost because of terrible policies like USMCA voted on by my friend here is to make sure.
Hoping what comes next isn't worse seems like a flimsy ask. When you're on a boat that has its rudder broken and you're hurtling towards a waterfall, hoping that the next thing that happens isn't worse is actually a bold, daring, revolutionary ask. When you are staring down the barrel of a gun and you're looking your executioner in the eye, hoping the next thing that happens isn't worse for you is actually the... I'm not looking to, win $1 million or to win the lottery or get a free unicorn or whatever, I'm not looking to see pigs fly. If I could just dodge that bullet.
That we are thoughtful about actually regulating the way that corporations and the top of corporations make decisions. Number one, I think we need to ban stock buybacks. This is this process by which
Oh yeah, easily. Yeah, any real liberal would agree with this. Just a very basic read on the incentive structure within a market economy demands the destruction of stock buybacks. Time and time again, it's been proven corporations will just rent seek. They just won't spend money on R&D because they'd rather immediately enrich their shareholders by buying back their own stock, thus increasing the value of the stock the shareholders own. They've done this time and time again. Many corporations have done a stock buyback and then collapsed because they just didn't invest in any of their infrastructure. They just wanted to immediately enrich their shareholders. Adam Smith would do genocide to get rid of stock buyback. If Adam Smith could understand, if he was brought back today, he would enact Mao-level mass executions if it meant getting rid of stock buybacks. Adam Smith would abandon capitalism before he accepted the stock buyback.
Corporations will literally buy their own stock to artificially raise their stock price, taking money away from the future of R&D and the workers themselves. Number two, I actually think that there's a pathway, unlike the stupid tariffs of Donald Trump, which is around-the-clock tariffs for everyone. I think that there's a place for targeted tariffs. If you think about free trade like cancer, I think we need some chemo. And the way that would work is that they were transparent, specific, directed to particular product lines. And then number three, I think we need to massively invest in continuing to be the best place to make an internal combustion engine in the world, and also to invest in EVs and EV infrastructure. And I want to talk about what I mean by that. I don't believe in a mandate, but what I do believe is that you should be able to buy a $25,000, 300-mile range car.
Based.
Brought to you by the big three. Why? Because that's the way that we're going to be able to create a product line that can compete all over the world with.
Super fucking based that he's been endorsed by UAW while also advocating for a relaxing on protectionist policy for American car manufacturers. He's really threading that line. He's been endorsed by UAW and he hasn't completely bent the knee to American car companies.
The kinds of cars that China is now manufacturing and eating our lunch on. But that means we have to invest in workers, and that really is the most important piece here. The UAW has built the American automotive industry. We need to be invested in them. We need to make sure that we continue to have the best manufacturing and engineering talent in the world, and that means ending the restriction that we've seen, and it means investing in our workers again. Again, we have an opportunity to continue to lead if we're willing to actually think past the ridiculousness of the Trump administration into what the future can be and into how we continue to invest in workers, engineers, and a product line be fit for the future.
I saw a video where they explained the reason tech companies have fired so many workers because they wanted to break the culture of pro-work software engineers so they won't have to pay them in shares, so more value for shareholders. Oh yeah, no, 100%. This is the Omni segment stuff, by the way. Basically, the only way for companies to make money for their shareholders these days is not by being a company that sells products or services, but rather by massively inflating value for speculators and then doing everything you can to cut the margins. It's the exact same thing private equity does. Private equity does not make money for the companies they buy by increasing the quality or range of their services and products. They do it by gutting the company, making as much money as they can for the shareholders of the private equity company before the whole thing is inevitably slashed and burned. Now every company operates that way for their own assets too.
Have a long-standing relationship with retirees and UAW members, and to have 17 labor endorsements in this race by a long shot. And I'm also very proud to have receipts and plans, and I'll show you where I'm leading the charge. Costs are killing us in our manufacturing sector. All right, the trade war with Canada has sold us out. There are 1,000 Cleveland Cliffs workers, mostly in downriver, that are out of work right now. You know, Mike Rogers wants to rubber stamp all of this. The stakes couldn't be higher. November is 50-50. He said on the leaked call he wants to run against Abdul. He knows that I passed bipartisan wins for.
This is not true. I believe the leaked call said that when he was talking to the people in his campaign, he felt confident against Abdul, which, of course, why would he say the opposite? Why would he admit to people who are giving him money to run a campaign, oh yeah, we'll lose if it's against Abdul? He did not say he would prefer running against Abdul.
Michigan with chips and science to lessen our dependence on China, that I want to do that with critical minerals, which will lower costs and create jobs and continue to propel us as a man.
Why is she whispering? Do you think she talks like this because she takes money from rapists? Like the only people she talks with, the only people she's ever in a room with are like Epsteinites or whatever? So like she's just adopted their mannerisms a little bit?
Manufacturing hub. And look, Roop, I was deeply proud to play a role in the Obama administration when our big three was on the line, particularly General Motors and Chrysler, and hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs across our state. That was a long time ago, but it was policy that worked. We cannot take for granted that this incredible state of ours, Michigan, is just one of a handful left in the country whose central economy, all the jobs, drive through manufacturing. I'm going to be the champion for that in the United States Senate, and I'm going to run through anyone and anything that gets in my way to deliver for us.
I'm going to run over as many children as it takes. I'm going to bulldoze as many West Bank houses as it takes.
Anti-democratic. And we had an opportunity to break the filibuster. Now, let me just talk about what the filibuster is. The filibuster is a process by which all of the Senate can hide behind one senator who wants to filibuster, which requires a 60-vote threshold to break. And that means that you need 60 votes to pass something when it really should just be the majority number of votes. I oppose the filibuster. I think the filibuster has been anti-democratic for a lot of reasons. And once you get past that, we have the opportunity to get money out of politics to take on Citizens United. We have the opportunity to put money back in pockets by doing things like passing the PRO Act to stand with unions like the UAW who've endorsed us. We have the opportunity to start changing and enforcing our antitrust policies so a few corporations can't pick your pocket at every turn. We have the opportunity to tax billionaires their wealth, and we have the opportunity to finally guarantee every single person in this country health care through Medicare for all. But we've got to get the democracy part of it right. And right now, the biggest risks to our democracy are the filibuster, it's anti-democratic at the Senate, and money in politics. The attack ads that you've seen probably in the last commercial break itself that change our political system. When you ask $60 million to come into a race for you and then say that somehow you're electable, I think you don't quite understand what electability means. If you need a $60 million crutch, you probably can't be.
So good. Am I the only one who can sense the contempt for voters behind Stephen's smug smile? It's been like that for a while. One of the big like nuggets of info I recently rediscovered, like I knew about this before and then I forgot about it and then I've rediscovered it, is the fact that in 2008 when Hillary Clinton was running against Barack Obama, Bill Clinton was speaking with a contemporary, with a peer on Barack Obama's chances in the presidency and disparagingly referred to him as somebody who would have served them drinks a few years ago. And I can't get it out of my head. Bill Clinton still represents to a lot of Democrats the good days of the Democratic Party. And like, even then, the Epsteinite, like, overwhelming contempt for the working class. Because again, like, you know, Barack Obama might have been like a constitutional lawyer, but the critical thing is here, like the meaningful distinction is that the Clintons were big money Wall Street Epstein folks. So to them, you know, to them, Barack Obama is just like a cutesy, well-educated black kid from Hawaii or whatever, you know, like it's that's their to him. Oh, he's like, oh, isn't he cute? Isn't he special? Like the class contempt is so overwhelming. The difference with Haley Stevens is that Haley Stevens is not personally wealthy or well-connected. She's just a chosen vessel for power.
Elected on your own terms. So I would just say that you should probably, if you really want to beat Mike Rogers, find the candidate who is electable without having to ask for a $60 million crutch to do it.
Congresswoman.
Really missing is what we need here in Michigan. You know, an understanding of what makes our state tick, go and visit a small business. Go and talk to a Black-owned business. I know it's great to host rallies and have these fun events, but everywhere I have gone in Michigan, I have taken the time to visit a minority-owned business. I want to see my bill that would take an investment capital structure into Black-owned businesses. So things like what we have on the Avenue of Fashion, which is a national best practice, that we can do that in Saginaw and Muskegon and Lansing. There's so much great economic development happening here.
I love it,
but our
Paul.
tax code and our tax dollars aren't working for us, which is why I have staked such a big part of my campaign on hope and equity, so that every zip code gets equal investment. I have fought to bring these dollars into Pontiac, and I'm darn proud of it. For the bridge and for youth recreation, we need to continue to do that across the state. And the people who aren't from here, who are so eager to campaign here, they should really come and spend some time with the residents and the people who I'm hearing from each and every single day. Look, there's a lot to be proud of for Michigan, but there is so much we could be doing to do more for folks.
I believe
We're going to talk about the cynical weaponization of like Black people specifically, but minority groups in general, in this campaign a bit, because the Clyburn endorsement and like everything surrounding it is so fucking evil. So fucking evil.
I just want to make sure that the viewer had their question answered, because I think it was about what was going wrong in the Senate. And we got this conversation about why senators should come visit, which is actually exactly what they just did. But I just also want to just be clear about this, that at the end of the day, yes, you should go to small businesses. That's actually what we've done. We've also gone to 475 public events where we actually took questions from an audience rather than these baked and polished, made for a camera events that too often is the way that my friend has campaigned. And so, look, we do bring people in because we want to actually introduce them to Michiganders. And wouldn't it be better if one of our senators went to the Senate with colleagues ready to work with them on day one?
Well, I do want to ask you both about contrasting something that I think is really important right now.
Right now, to redirect $70 billion of your tax money, Michiganders' taxpayer money, that went to ICE at the expense of your health care, at the expense of food benefits, all things that I am hearing from.
She voted not only to fund ICE, but also to give them thanks for their work defending America.
On Michiganders where they are experiencing pain points. We've got to redirect that $70 billion back into communities. I called for Kristi Noem to go. She was fired. But guess what? No reforms. Not a penny more for this rogue agency that is wreaking havoc. Look,
she has given them money and voted to show them appreciation.
Talked to administrators at Harms Elementary in Detroit, parents who are afraid to drop their kids off for school because of these ICE raids. This isn't working for us. This is abuse of power. And I am standing up to Trump right now on these abuses of power, not shouting into a bullhorn, not getting in front of the first camera I see, but doing the hard work. That is what
of thanking ICE.
What Michigan deserves. Look, my opponent here, Abdul, he is such a talented guy. He's written 3 books. He's had 300 podcasts. He's had all this attention.
Contempt.
The deal is we don't need a celebrity candidate. We don't need a celebrity senator. We need somebody who is committed to 6 years of hard, unglamorous work that's going to stand up to this junk that is wreaking havoc and causing chaos right before our very eyes. It's unacceptable.
All right, Congressman.
God almighty.
4 times. That's the part that you didn't hear. 4 times voted to raise ICE funding, voted to thank ICE, in fact. So this is the same kind of DC hypocrisy, I hate to say it, that we often see. Say one thing in front of a camera, do another thing. I said that we need to abolish ICE. ICE is not about immigration. ICE is not about the southern border. We can have a safe and secure southern border. We can also enforce immigration policy. But ICE is not about that. ICE is about normalizing paramilitary force on our streets. And I just want to push back on the idea that it's calmed down. I mean, I was just in Genesee County this weekend, and you had raids in Saginaw People are scared to death.
She really all but spells her. She views her job as an unaccountable steward of capital. To this, we can, I think, to an extent, thank Trump, because Trump has been so odious and has drawn the Overton window so far right that it's made it really, really, really clear when somebody is just an empty vessel for conservative politics. Like, if we lived in the Obama era, it'd be much, much easier for people like Haley Stevens to lie, because it wouldn't be possible for them to have to defend positions that are so bad. But thanks to Trump and October 7th, Haley Stevens has to be out here being a cheerleader for an active genocide rather than, like, I don't know, a passive cheerleader for a mere active settler colonial project. You know what I mean? Like, it's gotten much harder to defend Israel to Democrats, or to Americans in general, after October 7th.
And we've got a congresswoman who tells you that she's against ICE, has voted to raise ICE funding, voted to thank ICE, called the people who work in ICE, I don't know, very fine public servants and other things when she went and visited herself. So I'm just saying that I do the thing that I say I'm going to do. I don't think ICE needs to exist. For the better part of our country's history, we did not have an ICE, and I think we can do a much better job when it comes to immigration without one. And here's the last thing I just want to say about this. When it comes to the question of immigration, we need Democrats who are going to stand up and actually talk about the great good that immigration has done for our country in the first place. The idea that somehow we can't say abolish ICE because we're so afraid of what they're going to say when we've seen ICE terrorize people in our streets, to me, is exactly the kind of cowardice that we don't need from Democrats. So yeah, I'm going to take the bullhorn, and I'm going to say that.
But she can't even do politics disingenuously. How is thanking ICE at all a good move for somebody running in a Dem primary? Because you can't lie infinitely. In order to, like, not every donor and not every support or independent interest group, not every special interest group is, like, willing to toe the line cynically all the time. If you are running off the support of pro-AIPAC freaks, you need to talk like a pro-AIPAC freak. Not every donor, not every, like, support group or super PAC is going to support you because they know you're going to quietly change your position on everything as soon as you get in. You have to communicate your evil for the evil people to support you. So there are limits, you know? Dude, she keeps bringing up the fact that he's in podcasts. Why the fuck is she only trying to appeal to people who are like 65 years old?
People working with ICE.
Roop, let me just be very clear. Complaints and slogans aren't solutions, all right? I went up to an ICE detention facility to call out and see why people were losing their lives, why they were being held for long.
Did you see the video she did outside an ICE facility where she said she was glad there were female ICE agents detaining children? Oh my God, no. Can you please find that for me? Did she really do the maybe one day the drone pilots will be women bit?
Periods of time without due process. This has been an outrage. And look, a lot of you remember Abdul from when he first ran for governor in 2018. It didn't work out. So he started the podcast, he wrote the books, and now he's running for Senate. And he's already bought the website for president. You know, it's just another rung on the ladder. That's not what this job is for me. That's not why I'm putting up my hand in this moment. It's not.
She's been in politics her entire life.
About celebrity. This is about making sure that Mike Rogers doesn't get anywhere close to this seat. I'm the only one on this stage who has beat MAGA 4 times and delivered repeatedly for this state and for our values, for our rights and our freedoms. And I promise you, Michigan, I will make us shine.
Dr. El-Sayed, there are people watching this right now, and every time they hear this podcast business, they're scratching their heads. They're putting food on the table.
What'd you deliver? Certainly not any fucking DoorDash orders, man. She's never had a real job in her life.
Gas in the tank. They're curious to know what that's about. Have you made a ton of money because of podcasts?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I told all the viewers that
you can tell the moderators prefer Abdul El-Sayed to Haley Stevens too. After all the fucking debates that Mamdani had to do, where the freak debate moderators were like, "Can you explain to the people of New York why you won't kiss the wall?" It is kind of nice to see moderators who care a little bit.
At the outset, that while my opponent was going to make this about me and her, I want to make this about you. Somehow she just really, you can listen to the podcast. It's there. Congresswoman, if you enjoy podcasts about public health, I welcome you to take a listen. You seem very concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the fact that people can't pay for their gas. They can't pay for their groceries. We're fighting a war that's cost us billions of dollars that has been pushed by the government of a foreign country, the same foreign country that the folks paying for your ads want us to send send billions of dollars to? And that's the thing that I think Michiganders really want to.
No, she did deliver sandwiches as an intern during the Obama auto bailout. I mean, it sounds like a joke, but look at this dog. Went to American University in Washington, D.C., Bachelor of Arts in Political Science in 2005, Master of Arts in 2007. In 2006, while she was a fucking master's student, she was hired by the Michigan Democratic Party as a field organizer, began working for Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign, and then, after she lost, transitioned over to Obama's team when he won the primaries. Stephen Ratner hired Stevens to join the presidential task force on the auto industry during the bailouts. Like this is literally her entire job. A steward of capital and politics. She has never, ever once been a normal person.
Of note, there are female leadership here. There's female leadership, and there are women who
oh my God,
who walked with us today and explained on the intake process how important it is to treat people with humanity.
Notice how back here in February of this year she talked different.
And that obviously really stuck out to me, because some of the things that we are witnessing before our eyes in our neighborhoods, in our streets, is really a lack of humanity.
This was just earlier this year.
Understand, they're not that worried about the fact that I hosted a podcast. They're worried about the fact that right now, for a lot of folks, their kids go to schools that are unbecoming of their future. They are worried about the fact that they can't gas up their car because it costs, what, $4.50 a gallon? They're worried about the fact that the same corporations who funded your campaign are raising rates on the things that they can't go without, like their power. So
let's see what we can get out of the highlights here.
Not released your full tax returns, $300,000 in other income. While
Phone bang for Abdul in 20 minutes. Benjamin, this is not your chat. This is my chat. Get out of here. Shoo. Get out, you little scamp. I'm chasing you out of my chat with a damn broom.
You sat in the podcast
trying to pull people from my stream during the stream, motherfucker.
That RFK Jr. would thumbs up. You talk about getting money out of politics and putting money in people's pockets, but still no one knows who's putting the money in your pocket. You know, I have been transparent, and I am offering, you know, real plans to address the cost of living crisis,
we want to be able to
tackle Donald Trump's
And you're talking about what you did, but you also made some accusations here. Dr. El-Sayed, that is a question that some people may have that Congresswoman's talking about. Talk about the money and the financial disclosures. You were going to release some.
We released all of our financial disclosures. Again, this is a distraction from the issues in your life.
But not
I'd love to talk about transparency. I really would. Because I want you to ask yourself, there is this group called the Center for Democratic Priorities. They didn't exist until they popped up and started running ads for my opponent. And then there's this other group called Center Forward that paid for a flight for the Congresswoman and her mother to go to Portugal. And they just released their donors, and then it's a whole bunch of shell 501c4 organizations. They're the folks who are literally putting money in our pockets right now to try and mis and disinform us about this race. And here's the thing about it, none of it actually makes your life better. Think about the $60 million that got spent in this race. What could $60 million do for a community in Detroit? What could $60 million mean for erasing medical debt? I'll tell you, $6 billion it could erase. But they want to spend it to get the Congresswoman.
Because remember, to anyone who's confused by this, in America, medical debt is fake. You will owe $1 billion if you break a leg and go to the hospital, but because they can still make a profit off of like you paying them $1 million. Eventually, if you can't pay your medical debt, it can go up to like be auctioned by debt buying companies for pennies on the dollar. So in effect, the only time medical care costs what it's actually worth is after you've been driven bankrupt. That's the reason why it's possible to pay off billions in medical debt with millions.
Elected. Why? Because at the end of the day, they know that they're going to have a safe seat doing their bidding instead of yours. Every single dollar that DTE is spending is a down payment on knowing that they can raise your rates. Every single dollar that Blue Cross Blue Shield spends in this race is a down payment on raising your premium.
All right.
Every single dollar.
Thank you, Dr. El-Sayed. I want to ask some more.
God almighty. Highlights.
I just want to speak specifically to your question. I can tell you about what we've already done. We put air quality monitors all over Wayne County so folks can get real-time information about the air that they're breathing. Took on some of the biggest corporate polluters in our state when I was in the city of Detroit. Took on Marathon Petroleum, the biggest polluter and the most polluted zip code in the state. Forced them to invest their own money to reduce emissions when they had wanted to increase them. The truth of the matter is that these wildfires are happening more often because it's drier and hotter than it has been in the past. It's drier and hotter because we continue to rely on fossil fuels for our energy. We need to get to 100% renewable energy. And the only way we're going to do that is by taking the Chevrons and the Exxons of the world out of our politics. Now, guess whose campaign they supported? Well, if you guessed my congresswoman colleague, you probably guessed right, because yes, they have both given.
What if he hit us with a nasty reversal here and he was like, yep, it's me. I'm disclosing. It was actually me. That's right. This whole thing's been a dang ruse. Wouldn't that be? Man, no one makes good television anymore.
To that campaign. So when you hear ideas of things that ought to be done, but they never actually get done, you should ask yourself why it doesn't get done. Well, because the people who sell oil in this country fund the politicians who make sure that they can keep selling oil.
Dr. Al-Sayed, Congress.
I just want.
Cool. I think we've gotten the vibe from this, you know? Oh, by the way, funny note, not like super indicative here because we're dealing with early voting. Remember, the election's on the 4th. But my understanding is that in terms of early voting, there's actually been more out of Dearborn, Michigan than there has been out of Detroit, which is insane. Dearborn is the city with the large Arab population, which we're assuming is going to lean heavily pro Abdul Al-Sayed for a variety of reasons. But for early voting to exceed Detroit's numbers from Dearborn so far is absolutely insane. Genuinely like unprecedented. Day 3. Oh no, day 3, Detroit more than Dearborn. Maybe it was like as a percentage? I could be wrong on that. I did see that for a time Dearborn was beating out Detroit on early voting. Is Abdul part of the DSA? No, he is not DSA. Though obviously, like, you know, the DSA likes him. Francesco Hong. It was day 2. Day 2 was more Dearborn. Yes, here we go. Yeah, day 2 of early voting. Ann Arbor number 1, Dearborn over Detroit, which is pretty impressive. Oh, okay. Okay. Listen, can we sum this all up? I know that it's been a long coverage. I think that this is the most important election of 2026, the primary between Stevens and Abdul Al-Sayed, because it is a final showdown between AIPAC and democracy, a showdown between managed democracy, where everyone involved in endorsement for Haley Stevens is totally inauthentic and bought. It is a showdown between politics as we understand it, people promising good policies and being supported because people believe in them, versus democracy as managed by AIPAC and their capital allies. A fake democracy, a shambling zombie democracy, where support is driven entirely by enormous super PAC spending, and people are won over just through sheer dogged, determined, buyouts, essentially. Just name recognition and nothing else. I really cannot overstate how much a person who is generally pretty cynical about voting at this point, how much despair I will feel if Stevens wins out over Abdul Al-Sayed. This is something I'm willing to stake my emotional well-being on. I still think this country is going to fall, but if it is going to fall no matter what, I would rather it fall with people like Abdul Al-Sayed at the head, a person who represents the best of democracy, that is to say democracy at all, existing democracy, over a person like Stevens, which might as well be like the pro Zio slave rape candidate, just shambling towards the apocalypse thoughtlessly like cattle. The larger a margin Sayed wins by, the better we are looking. So please God, vote for Abdul Al-Sayed and phone bank and canvas. I mean it.